Hello and welcome. You're listening to the BDO First Call Debt Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Tara Bellio, and this is the second episode of our two-part series called Credit Score 101. In part one, we covered a few credit score basics like who determines your credit score, what's in your credit report, and why lenders care so much about your credit history. Then our LITs dug a little deeper and uncovered a few things that you might not know about your credit score that you should know. So let's start the second episode in this series by assuming that you've checked your credit score and the news isn't great. Your credit score is lower than you'd like it to be, and the history in your credit report is less than stellar. You're probably wondering what you can do to improve your credit score and how you can rebuild your credit. The good news is it is possible to leave a low credit score behind you and rebuild your credit. It just takes a little time, determination, and sound planning. We ask our LITs for their advice, and they've come up with 4 great tips that will help you turn over a new leaf and get started on rebuilding your credit today. So joining us on this podcast is Andre Balduc from our Ottawa office, Jasmine Kalniuk from our Saskatoon office, Jennifer McCracken from our Vancouver office, and Craig Frizik from our Calgary office. So let's start with you, Andre. Before we talk more about our tips, let's talk about credit scores. What financial behavior can negatively impact your credit score?
Ways you can hurt your credit history and lower your credit score are the following: missing bill payments, making late payments, letting debts go into collection, using a high percentage of your credit cards, and finally filing a consumer proposal or personal bankruptcy. Now, all of these things, when you do them, they affect what's called your R rating. So people that have a good credit score or a good rating, they get an R1. It means you're paying on time. If you're 30 days late, you get an R2. If you're 60 days late, you're an R3. So anything that's not an R1 is bad. Going to collections is an R9, which is the worst you can get. Now, I mentioned doing a proposal or doing a bankruptcy may impact a credit score. It's a bit misleading, and a lot of people are under the impression, or they're afraid of doing a proposal or bankruptcy, believing it will negatively impact their score. The reason I say it's misleading is because people that have to resort to this already have late payments or they have gone to collections. So the credit score is already ruined. What happens when you do nothing, however, is these creditors report every month to your bureau, R9, R9. It never goes away. However, when you do a proposal or bankruptcy, you're actually drawing a line in the sand, and you're putting these debts behind you, and you know that it's the start to you rebuilding. Because in a bankruptcy, you may get a discharge after 9 months. 6 years after that 9 months, all the bad stuff comes off your credit bureau. Same thing with a proposal. Once you finish paying off your proposal, the bad stuff comes 3 years after that. And without doing the proposal or bankruptcy, they could potentially stay on there forever.
Our first tip for rebuilding credit is to review your credit history. Why is this step so important, Jasmine, and how can a person find this information?
So you can get a free copy of your credit report once per year from credit bureaus Equifax and TransUnion. Your credit report contains your credit history, so credit cards, lines of credit, and loans are all there. It's suggested that you dig deeper into how you've been using and managing your credit. So for example, you may have missed or skipped payments, maxed out your credit cards, or applied for credit repeatedly over a short period of time, and that will show there. So once you've found out what has brought your credit score down, you can take steps to raise your score. And it's important to understand and remember that rebuilding your credit doesn't happen overnight.
Tip number 2 for improving your credit score and rebuilding credit is to change your credit behavior. Tell us more about that, Andre.
For delinquent accounts, catch up on the missed payments or the late payments. It's never too late to do the right thing. And if you're consistently late on making payments or credit card payments, consider setting up automatic deposits so you do not make the payments late. When a lender looks at your credit bureau, they may see that in the past you've fallen behind, but it will also show on there if you've caught up or if you paid it off. And they're always willing to forgive when you have paid it off. Where they're least flexible is when they see that you've had something go in collection or is delinquent and you haven't dealt with it. That's really a problem. Secondly, if you're using too much of your available credit, that's also a problem. And what you need to change there in terms of your behavior is to get your credit utilization down to 50% of your limit at the minimum, and ideally 30% of your limit. You can do that a couple of ways, by accelerating payments on your debts. You can use the debt avalanche or debt snowball method. You can find some worksheets for that online. Now, if you cannot get your utilization down, and in fact it's going up month after month, or you're getting more credit, then you may not need to look at something more formal by way of a debt consolidation, credit counseling, or even a consumer proposal or bankruptcy, at which point you would get professional advice to see if that's appropriate for you.
Tip number 3 is to get to work on creating a new credit history. So Jennifer, what are some strategies that will help an individual create a positive credit history?
Remember that your goal is to prove that you can handle credit responsibly. This is especially important if you have a prior history of completing a consumer proposal or being in a bankruptcy. We suggest that getting a secured credit card is a good place to start. This is where you place a deposit on the account and you will have access to a low level of credit. These tend to be more accessible and easier to qualify for than other unsecured types of credit. We also encourage you to make your payments on time and in full. Use only a portion of your available credit on your secured card. We also suggest that you limit the number of credit applications or credit checks. A high number of hits will have a negative effect on your credit score. And also keep in mind, if you've had an application be declined, we suggest that you wait 6 months at a minimum before you apply again. Some kind of more obvious tips that we give people are things like avoid payday loans. That's pretty obvious that you're having cash flow issues. It's not going to help your credit if you have payday loan applications. Also remember to pay the simple things like your utility bills, the hydro, the gas, the cable, etc. Pay all those on time. And you may find another quick, easy way to reestablish your credit is to apply for a cell phone contract. Not all of them universally report to your credit, but you can inquire to those that will. That's an opportunity to show that you're responsible with handling your bill payments.
Finally, our 4th tip is to create a financial plan. And we talk about this a lot in our podcast, Craig. So why is this important when an individual is trying to rebuild credit?
The reason we talk about having a financial plan so often is just because it's the foundation of financial success. Having a financial plan requires an individual to practice good financial habits. Here are 7 habits that if you do these things, you will be more successful and your credit score will improve. 1, stick to a monthly budget. We talk about this all the time. Stick to a budget, track your spending, make all your bill payments on time. If there's debt like a credit card or student loan or mortgage, you need to have a debt repayment plan in place. Live within or below your means, have funds set aside for emergencies, and set some short and long-term saving goals. Those are the 7 tips, and if you could do that, rewind it and listen to it a few times, you'll be better off. These good habits will make it easier to reach your goals of creating a new, better credit history, and ultimately will result in a better credit score. A few other little good tips. Check in with your credit report annually. You can get those for free. If there's anything wrong on there, make sure you bring it up with your credit agency and get that corrected. Keep your balances low. I believe below 30% on your credit cards will increase your score. Make sure you're paying them off regularly instead of just moving it from credit card to credit card.
As always, I'd like to offer a big thank you to our LITs, Andre, Jasmine, Jennifer, and Craig, for these awesome tips and strategies. And thank you for taking a few moments to listen to our BDO Debt Solutions podcast. If you happen to have a friend or family member who is struggling with poor credit or a low credit score, we encourage you to share this podcast with them. And for more podcasts and videos, check out our YouTube channel, BDO Debt Solutions Canada. Until next time, I'm Tara Bellio, reminding you that it is possible to leave debt behind.